We're live.
We are live. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of Facebook World and YouTube Land, we are live. This is your weekly dose of Mauls, Balls and All, where each week, as you well know, we talk about all things rugby. And we, as kind of most weeks, we have a known name on with us from the rugby world, be it they an ex-player, be it they an ex-coach, be it they involved in the media. And tonight is no different. But before we get on to our guest, let me just welcome back regular guests that we've had on. We have Peter Martin is rejoining us after a short break. Peter Martin, how the hell are you? Are you well?
Amazing, Peter. And yourself?
Good to see you. And also Mike Reedy, the Irishman in Glasgow. Mike Reedy, how the hell are you? Are you well?
I'm very well, lads. Thank you very much, Peter.
Good man. And our guest this evening, folks, if you followed rugby over the past, Jesus, I certainly have. I'm well aware of this gentleman. He's been writing, he's been covering rugby since the early 80s. He has written for the Indo, the Sunday Indo. He's written for the Sunday Times. He's written for the Tribune Group. He's also written for the Guardian Group. He is also now on his third book about our beautiful game. His first two books, From There to Here and also Crossing the Line. His latest book is Touching Distance. Folks, it is a great pleasure of ours to welcome to the stage Brendan Fanning. Brendan Fanning, how the hell are you?
Very good, Pete. Glad to be on board here. Thanks for the invite.
Not at all. Are you well in yourself, Brendan, as I always ask people? It's a very Irish thing. But are you well in yourself?
Yeah, I'm above ground.
You're above ground.
And as I said earlier on, I'm indoors, which on a night like this is a good place to be.
Well, there you go. That's it. Listen, Brendan, we'll talk about your book now in a few minutes, but what I wanted to ask you was just a few things, actually. I said to you, we shoot off in tangents. We had Lou Pearce on here, the referee, as you are probably well aware of, and he said to us that he said prior to coming onto our show, but we brought it back up with him when he was on the show. He said the game is too complicated. You've been covering this game since the 80s. Brendan, is the game too complicated? From where it came from to where it is now?
If you're trying to market the game, if you're trying to sell the game into an audience who have very little knowledge of it, it is a hard sell. It is immediately attractive because of the gladiatorial element of it, and that in itself will attract people. They'll be left for dead, however, by not so much the number of stoppages, but the nature of the stoppages. It is the most complex team sport, I think, physical impact team sport. In theory, it's simple enough: run straight, score tries. But all the stuff that happens when you run straight and score tries are difficult to regulate and very difficult to manage. And the key separator, for example, from its first cousin rugby league would be that, unlike league, there is a fair contest for possession. As soon as there's a tackle in league, the game stops and it restarts in the same method every time. That isn't the case in rugby. As soon as a tackle is made, there's a contest for possession. And that introduces all sorts of stuff. So there are loads of laws around that breakdown, and that's where the complexity comes in, and you can't simplify that without fundamentally changing the game, and that's why it's hard to sell.
Brilliant. Okay, but is there? Okay, so to go back to basics, are there too many laws in the bloody game, Brent?
No, I've just explained that.
No. I know that. But yeah.
No, sorry, I'm not. I don't want to be flippant about it, but if you have a fair contest at the core of rugby, Peter, is a fair contest for possession. If you have athletes the size of not just modern rugby players, modern schools players who are huge and very fit and very powerful and very aggressive, and they are contesting the ball full on every time. Mayhem is going to ensue, and you need a whole battery of laws, as opposed rules in football, laws in rugby, to try and regulate that. You can't, if you don't frame that chaos in a whole bunch of laws, it is going to be even more chaotic, and probably will have you down the forecourts, more often than you want to be.
All right. Fair enough. Okay. Okay, Peter Martin. We've spoken about this before, but the game, or our game as we know it, is it too complicated? As Luke Pearce has told us, and he explained it, and it was actually a similar explanation to what Brendan just said. That the breakdown, and you could be in the forecourts. Is it too complicated?
For those on the outside looking in, I would say it is too complicated. They just don't understand. I've been in, and I'm sure everyone here has been in the company of somebody who doesn't watch rugby or who has played it, and they're watching something on TV because let's face it, that's where most of it's going to be seen, and it'll be a Six Nations game more than likely, and there's somebody in the room is getting emotional because the referee made a decision or something like that, and anybody looking by, it's not clear as day as regards what's happening, and the game moves kind of quickly and with a certain amount of speed that you can't basically stop and explain something to somebody who's just a bystander in about 15 seconds what just happened. You just can't. And if you can't explain something, in a reasonable amount of time, whereby if you've lost their interest, forget about it. That's basically it. That's ultimately what it boils down to. Now, as Brendan said, we're looking for a fair contest when we have the breakdown. But there's too many variables. There's too many variables there. I've said it before. I've had this conversation when we're talking about referees and the job they have to do. There's so many different potential infringements in the laws at any one time. And you're really kind of reliant on what is the referee really looking out for? What is he particularly hard on? What's he soft on? And you play the referee. You don't play the laws of the game. You don't play the rules necessarily. So it's that inconsistency, which basically, somebody who could be trying to get a better understanding of the game says, I saw a game last week and I saw the referee making the signal for holding on. And this week I see the same thing on, but he's not blown. He's blown for somebody not rolling away. And you're saying, well, both of them can be true at the same time. And it's like, well, how can the two of them be true at the same time if they're both happening at the same time? As well, that's down to the referee. And you're going, are you for real? The referee? I says, yes. It's whatever the referee ultimately decides or sees at that moment. The picture, as we keep talking about, the picture we're trying to give the referee, particularly at scrum time, whatever like this. It's you're trying to sell them something that perhaps isn't necessarily true. Not going off on a tangent, but if you've got one team who's clearly struggling at scrum time, we could be seeing it, but not naming names. We all know a particular Irish prop who's got a way of scrummaging, and the South Africans hate him for it. But
Andrew Porter, just say it, Andrew Porter.
Yeah, Andrew Porter. Yeah, and we're saying, well, hang on, he's a big guy, he's doing what he's doing, and the South Africans saying his arse is facing the touchline, and maybe it is on one scrum, and maybe it isn't the next, and then the referee does see it one time and doesn't see it the other, and you're like, it's just that's I think really is where the hard sell for bystanders, for casual rugby people who want to be entertained.
Yeah. Okay.
Ultimately, they're watching sport, they want to be entertained, and if they can't understand something that quickly and see the consistency, they're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I'd agree. Brendan, would you have a response to what Peter just said there?
Not really. Look, okay. No, sorry. I need you to just. This is like staring into a black hole.
Right. Okay.
We're not going to get any light. We're not going to shed any light on this. Peter said it frustrates the life out of people that referees aren't more consistent. I say that goes in GA and it goes in football and it goes in any other team contact physical sport as well. And I said I can't say it any other way. Where you have big athletes in a high impact game at high speed colliding, it's mayhem, and you have to put some sort of framework on it. And I've sympathy for World Rugby in two ways. One is their attempt to make the game safer.
Yes.
And two, to make it simpler. And I think they have made improvements on both. But it's funny, the one thing that they both have in common is the tackle and the breakdown. If you want to make it safe, take the tackle out of the game, but it's no longer rugby.
But yeah, exactly.
So that's the dilemma, and they're kind of manoeuvring around that constantly, perhaps partly motivated by the litigious times we live in, and they need to be seen to be constantly working on making this as safe and satisfying the responsibility for due care.
Actually, but sorry, Mike, before I come to you and ask you, Brendan, you've touched on something there. What do you think of this litigation that the ex-players are bringing against World Rugby about this concussion thing? Do you think it's going to work? Do you think it's going to be? Is it a showpiece, or how do you see this going out or transpiring?
I think I started writing about concussion. I think 2008 was probably the first time I put on my full metal jacket and got into that whole concussion business as a result of a Six Nations game between Wales and between Scotland and Wales in Murrayfield, when a freakish number of concussions happened at or about the same time, and the Scottish medic could not literally keep up. So a guy got up, Webster was his name, a winger, and he got back in the game after he had thrown his ring up as a result of getting a bang in the head. Got back up, back into the game, and everybody saw this and said, geez, this is madness. This is absolutely crazy. And I've been in and out and around it and whatever, and I don't feel I've anything more I can add to the concussion debate. I've every sympathy for fellas who are suffering after effects, and if they feel litigation is the way to go, then they feel litigation is the way to go. And I don't know enough about it legally to tell you, are they on a winner or a loser or what the story is.
That's fair enough. Did you watch the Steve Thompson documentary?
Yeah.
Just out of interest. Yeah.
No, I've spoken to a bunch of fellas, and I remember John Fogarty now, for quite some time now, is with the Ireland setup. I remember being lucky enough to get, and this sounds selfish, to get the story of him giving up through concussion and getting, Jesus, when was that? I think it could have been 2012. It could have been that long ago. I'm not sure. And I remember going out to his house and sitting down, and Dave Conhey, the Sindo photographer, came out as well. He got a brilliant picture of Fogarty and his little girl playing in the local park. And I'm interviewing him about concussion, and he starts talking about his mood change at home and how he was scared about his mood change and his little girl. And I was rooted to the spot.
Yes.
And he was having a lot of issues at the time. He was having trouble sleeping, all the symptoms that you've heard from other players. And it is heartbreaking. And thankfully, he seems to be 100% and has come out the far side. And interestingly, he is still involved in the game. But yeah, it is, excuse the pun, a dark place.
Yes. Well, but Brendan, we had, I just really like to explore this. We had, this is not to diminish the point at all. We had BJ Bota on here, and I said to him, I said, when I played the game back in the 80s, there was no such thing. There was the magic sponge, and there was the orange pieces at half time. But there didn't seem to be, now, albeit this could be in error, in hindsight, and overlooked, and all this sort of thing, that there didn't seem to be that much, and probably education was also probably a major part of it, but there didn't seem to be that many concussion. I'll probably answer my own question. There didn't seem to be that many concussion issues back then. I remember being knocked clean out, being brought back off the pitch, and got the magic sponge, and you're grand. Go on, Pete, you're back on. So, and BJ Bota was saying, well, yes, but the soft tissue injury and all that sort of stuff came into effect when the health and the welfare of players came more into being. But that, I think that only probably came, Brendan. Now, please disagree with me, after '95 when the game went pro. Or what do you think?
I think, concussion was always there. It wasn't called concussion. It wasn't,
exactly.
If it wasn't being recognised, well, then it wasn't being treated. And if it wasn't being treated, well, then it wasn't a problem. So everybody drove on. And of course, when the game went pro, the whole legal environment changed. And moreover, when you got bigger, faster, stronger athletes playing the game in a game that was faster, then if you're going to have more impacts among bigger people, you're going to have more concussions. So you add it all up together and we are where we are.
Yeah, true. Okay, yeah, no, that's fair enough. Mike Reedy, you're waiting patiently. Has the game gone to technical, so to speak, or what we just spoken about with Peter and Brendan?
It hasn't gone too technical, no. But they've all touched on different aspects here. I think the biggest contributing factor to one of the issues you're talking about, concussion, is the actual size of players these days. Compared to back in the day, back in the 80s, like we've been involved in rugby for nearly 50 years, and it's a completely different game to the game I was involved with back then. And due absolutely wholly to the size of the physicality and the size of players and the increase in speed and power and everything. But the impacts are absolutely enormous. And there's I mean, the human body has never been designed like for 220-stone guys like that, without your brain is moving around inside your skull. So, and it was due to lack of knowledge back in this century, basically, that concussion wasn't recognized as a problem. Because people didn't know you'll get knocked out and you get back up and get back on with it. Like you said, the magic sponge. But it's definitely a very, very serious issue. And where it's going to become more serious is when parents take the decision to stop their children playing rugby because of the dangers. If these litigations go ahead and are successful, or even are unsuccessful, the fact that they're there in the first place will make people think, do I really want my child getting involved in a sport where they could sustain? We all know getting involved in rugby, you accept that you're going to get hit hard, and you're going to get hurt. But it's now like onto the professional era, and it's a different kettle of fish altogether. And when you have former players suing the different organisations for injuries sustained playing rugby or concussions, and now leading on to stuff like motor neuron disease and etc., you've got an issue. And I have seen former professional players or present professional players saying that they're not going to allow their kids to play rugby. That's a concern for me.
Yes.
But I don't think the game has gone too complicated. I think it's some of it is caused as well by the amount of cameras that are available these days. They pick up absolutely everything. Nothing.
But Mike, we had Luke Pearce on here saying that the game has gone too complicated.
I don't.
He's an international rugby referee.
I know.
So.
I'm not going to dispute that. Like he knows. He knows it's very complicated to referee, and part of that's caused by the fact that there's cameras scrutinizing absolutely every decision he makes or doesn't make, and so it is complicated from that aspect. But as regards the game, the sport itself, it's the physicality that's involved in the sport now, and that's what slows a lot of it down. I fell in love with rugby in the early mid 70s, like the Lions team, your Gareth Edwards and JPR Williams, Phil Bennett and Mike Gibson, players like that. And it was almost a simpler game in a way at the time. You still had the level of physicality, but not the impacts because the size of the players weren't as great. I mean, John alone would change the face of rugby, absolutely no question about it. Prior to him, there was no such thing as a 6'5" or 6 winger with 17, 18 stone weight. It just didn't.
No, but he was a freak though, Mike. He was and he wasn't.
He just changed the whole concept of what rugby has become since, you know. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm not 100% convinced that it's a better viewing spectacle now than it was back in the amateur era.
We're going to come on to that, Mike. We've got just a comment here from Mark Noonan. I see Bishop Len saying evening all, Gregor Galway, evening all, etc. But Mark Noonan, yeah, speed and weight can be a dangerous combo. The game is certainly getting better. You've lads going off the pitch because they're gummies ping and they may feel absolutely fine. That alone is a massive step forward. Brendan, I presume you'd agree with that.
Yeah, rugby is unquestionably a better game to watch. Like Mike, I took a huge interest and started taking a big interest in rugby from 71 from the Lions, even before that, to Ireland. And Jesus, if you see rugby, anything other than clips of the very best, if you see any long passage of rugby from back then, it was awful compared to rugby.
Well, there is an argument for that, which we'll come on to. Sorry, go on, Mike. You were going to say something there?
Well, forwards didn't carry the ball back then. Forwards very rarely carried the ball. I mean, players
the first guy in Ireland? The first guy in Ireland started carrying the ball.
And Willie John McBride actually changed that concept of rugby as well on a Lions tour. They actually decided to pick the ball up and start running with it. It was almost
who's the first Irish player to start carrying the ball on a consistent basis as part of coaching, as a result of the way they were being coached?
Now go on, Mike. I don't know.
You're talking about a forward.
It is.
Well, go on.
Well, I would say either Fergus Slattery or Willie John McBride. I don't know now. I don't know the answer to the question.
Well,
go on, Brendan.
My strong feeling of this is Keith Wood.
Keith Wood.
Yeah.
Keith Wood? Really?
Correct. And that because Gary, the first I remember reporting on the AIL way back, and under Murray Kidd, if you remember him, their Kiwi coach Gary Owen were one of the top teams in the country. Won 2 of the first 4 AILs, and Keith Wood coming around the corner, he was the first guy that I remember doing it on a consistent basis. And
on a consistent basis,
he made unbelievable ground for Gary Owen. He gave them immediate go forward.
Well, of course, but come here, Brendan. What was the famous try he scored off the back of the line out against England?
Yeah,
you know. Okay, Peter Martin, anything to add before we move on?
Well, I suppose, look, it's just a comment really is that, like, an awful lot, like we've had David Corkery on here who has kind of flipped a little bit against now. We know that, without getting into it too much, we know David Corkery had very strong feelings about his former employer, but he was one who would promote rugby because he felt it's a hell of a lot safer today than it was when he played. I suppose the context of where these legal cases being taken by ex-players was the time when rugby went professional was in the mid-90s, and like guys trained twice a week. So all of a sudden they went from an amateur ethos of a Tuesdays and a Thursday maybe and saying, "Oh, hang on, lads, we're professional, we're being paid. We need to and train more than two times a week. So they trained 4 and 5 times a week. And not only that, and I suppose this is part of where poor Steve Thompson and to an extent all the others misfortunates have come. They were all forwards, and there was a shed load of live scrummaging. And it was like basically there was hours upon hours of scrummaging. Basically, and you see from the line tours from the 90s into the early noughties, like they had a run at each other when it came to scrum time. There was no the crouch, bind and set and the crouch, touch, pause, engage. That came more recently, if you like. So the guys are having like that's what the scrum came from, was that basically lads were having a charge at each other. So there was significant impact, albeit players are starting to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But it was the type of training they did primarily, as much as indeed some of the games they played themselves, which were incredibly physical, because you just look back at some of the footage from the late 90s, early noughties. Guys are actually like literally launching themselves into rucks. There was no kind of proper kind of like you drop the shoulder, you basically drive them off. You literally, they were hurling themselves into it. Like guys were going off their feet. All this kind of stuff was going on. The breakdown was an absolute flipping mess. There was no quick ball. All these other things. The game was an awful lot, I suppose, shabbier. But guys weren't guided really as regards the training and that. And that all wound itself right back to the point. And I remember, and Joe Schmidt there was recently, when he was in charge of the Irish team, where a contact session was no more than 40 minutes in total throughout an entire week or something like that. Brendan, you might have
there was it was dramatic, a sea change, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that the significant impact, while it's still significant now, there's an awful lot more recognition of size and power and impact now, and I think the player welfare and treatment and training has been adapted to suit.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, thanks, Pete, for that. Thank you, gentlemen. Brendan, okay, you have your 3rd book released, Brendan. Have you got a copy of it there? Do you want to just hold it up there? You had it there before. Touching distance, there you go. Well done, good man. Okay, good man, well done. Now, this is a follow-up, Brendan, or a sequel, if you will, from your book, your earlier book, From There to Here. Now, the tagline of your book is Irish rugby's battle with great expectations. What are those expectations?
They vary, I guess, slightly from year to year, but the expectation is that we will finally make the last 4 of the World Cup. The expectation is that we will deliver at provincial level. The expectation is that we will be top end of the Six Nations, winning championships and winning Grand Slams. Those are the expectations.
I know I heard your interview with our friends Justin on the business end, and you were talking about World Cups. And for people watching this that may not have heard your interview on the business end, you made a very good point, I thought, that every single World Cup was different. Do you want to just tell folks who might be watching this what you meant by that? Now, I heard it. Some people watching this might not have heard it.
Okay. There have been 10 World Cups.
Yes.
If we were failing at 7 of those 10 because we were making the same mistake and hoping for a different outcome, then that would be unforgivable. That isn't the case. You can look at each of those 10 tournaments and find a myriad of things that went wrong, but it's not as if people fell asleep at the wheel and snored through 3 or 4 tournaments on the trot, failing to get to the desired point. So if it's something different all the time, and because the game is evolving at such a pace, it's not like you can go to the next one and say, okay, we got 10 of these wrong, and I think, is it the law of probability that it's going to work for us this time? Yeah. Or we got everything sussed. You've got everything sussed until the weather changes, or the team you're playing against do something different, or the referee takes a dislike to you. So there's all sorts of things. The only thing you can do is to do your utmost on making sure that the squad you're dealing with are as well prepared as possible. And the squad that you're selecting in the first place is coming from a system that is working at its optimum to produce as many players as possible. And that isn't the case currently. That's where we are weakest. Is that we are too reliant on a homogeneous product, which is a high functioning product, but nevertheless, it doesn't have enough X factor in it.
I was going to say, but now I will quote you. It seems you're not now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems you're not a huge fan, Brendan, of David Nucifora. Would you like me to read from your own book? All right. Okay. Everyone I spoke to declared David Nucifora to be sure of what he wanted and focused on getting there with minimum fuss. Frequently, that made him unpopular. One former IRFU colleague says, essentially, I think he saw people in one of two ways. Someone who challenges him and must be eliminated, sounds like a current US president, as a threat, or swerved, or someone who doesn't challenge him and is of no consequence. There's rarely an in-between. Brendan, what did you mean by that?
Well, it wasn't what I meant, it was what this person meant. And my own understanding of that and my own experience of David Nucifora was that when he arrived, he had a clear agenda, pretty much with a couple of items on it, and he knew what he wanted to do, and he knew who he wanted in order to get those things done. So he had those, I'm speaking figuratively, he had a list of the people who he needed to help him get those things done. And if you weren't on that list, then he didn't waste any time in talking to you. Sadly, I was not on that list. So the many times I would have approached him during his 10 years here, I would have had very little joy. I remember getting him twice in 10 years. I don't know how many times I tried to get him.
Hold on, but you're a journalist and you got access to him twice in 10 years.
Not in an unofficial way. In other words, me ringing him, me looking for a steer, an off-the-record steer on something.
Right, okay.
And hoping that he would pay.
But that's not really good, Brendan. Really, well, is it? For a man in his position.
It wasn't good for me, but I'm not sure that my interests were uppermost in his mind. In fact, I'm pretty sure they weren't. And this is a conversation about me being selfish. It was what I wanted in order to get my job done. So I didn't have any great dislike for David Nucifora. I didn't have any great liking for him. I didn't know the man very well. But I tell you one thing for absolute 100% sure. I was very grateful when I contacted him to do this book. And instead of saying no, he said yes. And he had not signed an NDA when he left the IRFU. And that either put him in, if not a unique position, certainly in an unusual position. And I suspect he did that knowingly, that he wanted to be able to shape the narrative and to shape his legacy after he had left Lansdowne Road. So when I got caught up with him, much to my delight, he said, yeah, I'm happy to do that. So I did a bit of work talking to people in Australia to get a decent background, and then had a really good catch up with him. And then there was a bit of follow on a couple of times subsequently to clarify stuff.
Yeah, I think, yeah, well, sorry, for me, just talking for me, I think Nucifora is very much in Irish rugby is very much of a Marmite character. I think. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Brendan. Just personal opinions, just from people I've spoken with. I think he's very much a Marmite character. Would you?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what a Marmite character is.
That means you either love him or you hate him.
Okay. Well, funny you should say that, because a guy I know well in Brisbane, a very experienced rugby man, whom I spoke to before he came to Lansdowne Road, when he was coming to Lansdowne Road, and he said exactly the same thing. He said, either you love him or you hate him. luckily, I loved him because the stuff he was doing was good for me and what I was doing. But I was in a minority. And it's very
Right.
hard to do the job he's doing without raising people's hackles and
Exactly.
making enemies. My issue with him was not a social one. I didn't have the hump that he didn't want to take calls and yak and do all the things I wanted to do. That really wasn't the issue. I thought it didn't make sense for him in having this attitude with other people in a system as small as ours. We have a functional system. Part of the reason it's functional is that a lot of the moving parts in the system are controlled because it's a small operation.
Yeah.
And it's easier to control than, let's say, England is, for example, or South Africa. And I thought relationships in a system as small as ours are at a premium. And I don't think he bothered his backside building relationships. He focused on the things he wanted and who's going to help him, and thereafter he never countenanced the prospect that, I may actually, Peter Burke, I'm gonna take his call. I'm gonna go to his club and I'm gonna do whatever, because who knows, Peter Burke might be in a situation at some point in the future to help me, or whoever.
Yeah,
and I think that's why people.
Sorry, Brendan. Sorry, I don't mean to cut across you. Do you think David Humphreys is a worthy replacement?
I tell you, give me about 18 months in the job.
I knew you were going to say something.
I think he would be. I think I would know Humphreys. I don't know him terribly well, but I know him a long time.
Yeah,
and I think he would be better at building relationships than David Nucifora was.
All right. Okay. That's a fair comment.
Folks, the rest of the stuff we leave for a moment.
Yeah, we will. No, you're right. I was going to anyway. Yes, absolutely. Folks, Brendan Fanning's latest book, Touching Distance, is out now in all good bookshops. He had a book launch last week in Clontarf. But you can walk into your Easons, or I presume it's in Dubray and all these, Brendan? True?
It's in I would hope it's in all good bookshops. If people are interested in buying it, A, that would be fantastic. B, I suspect their shortest route to buying it would be to just go online and order it, and people will bring it to your hall door within 48 hours, and you won't have to rummage around in a bookshop. Or look, I don't want to, take it out of the bookseller's mouth, but that's the simplest way. That's where I buy most of my books, I have to tell you.
Show us the cover again in case people missed it, Brendan. Just show us the cover again. Go on, promote the balls off it. Yeah, Touching Distance, Fanning. It sounds like a great read. I've read bits and parts of it. I just quoted one of the things about David Nucifora that we just spoke about. But folks, Touching Distance by Brendan Fanning, who is our guest this evening. Have a read. It looks like a good read. I can't wait to get my hands on it. Thanks, Brendan, for that. Very good.
Can I ask a question before you go off this subject?
Go on.
Your previous books, would you recommend that you read your previous books before going for this one?
That's a good question.
Well, the previous ones, the last one was Ghost wrote Willie Anderson's life story.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd be happy for you to go and buy that and read it, because he is a fascinating bloke, and obviously I'm biased, Mike. It is a good story.
Yeah.
And was very well received, and Willie was fantastic to work with. Absolutely.
Are they all available on Amazon? All those books available?
Oh yeah. Okay, luckily,
I'll be having a look into those.
Good man. Loads of publishers several publishers told us we were wasting our time with the Willie book.
Why?
Because he's from the 70s and 80s. He's a Nordy. Nobody down here cares about the Nordies. He's not from Leinster. He's not from Munster. Yada yada. All of these things. Who the hell is Willie Anderson? It was just a really good story, and it resonated with people.
I presume, Brendan, you have the flag incident in there.
Yes.
Brendan, can I ask you a question?
If it wasn't in it, I'd be.
No, I tell you now. Okay, go on. That's a very good story. Crossing the line, Brendan. Tell folks, please, about the Willie Anderson flag story, in case people want to look back from your prequel to your book at the moment from there to here. But the Willie Anderson story, crossing the line. Go on, tell people what the flag incident was.
Okay, in 2 minutes, he was on a Penguins tour. The Penguins was a touring team.
To Argentina.
Mike could remember them well. It was just a mix and gathering of players there was sponsorship involved, and they go off and they play wherever, and they'd spread the name of rugby, kind of. Basically, have a good time, play some rugby, pour a lot of beer down their neck, and whatever. So there's a tour to Argentina. Willie was selected on it along with a handful of other Irish guys, and they're not long there when they play a match. It was the second game of the tour, and they're on their way back to the hotel that night. They've had a few drinks, nothing outrageous, and at the time, Argentina was under military control, and there were official Argentine flags flying everywhere, and every second building was a government building. And Willie said, I wouldn't mind that. He had been in Canada on a tour with Ulster, had a big maple leaf Canada flag on his wall at home. He says, I'd love an Argentina one for the other wall. Long story short, himself and another guy who to this day remains unidentified, although everybody knows who he is. Willie pitched him up on his shoulders, and your man got the flag. Right. And they all went back to the hotel, and they're into somebody's room, and they're playing cards and singing and larking about and drinking beer. Or the next thing, they hear sirens outside, and they're making jokes about, "Oh, Willie, the cops are coming for you," and they were. And they were armed, and he frog marched Willie and a handful of others out. They ended up in custody, and they spent 2 weeks in custody.
Oh, I love it.
The other three, there were four of them. The other three were released and sent home. Willie had to remain on for 2 months, not in custody, but kind of under house arrest.
Wow,
so that was one chapter or two chapters of the book.
I think that's a brilliant story. I heard that before, but I kind of assumed it was going to be in your book about Willie Anderson.
So go on, Mike.
That's another book you haven't read, Peter. Then you haven't read the Willie one, and you haven't read this one.
I read. Excuse me. Hold on a second now. I read bits of your book. I told you I didn't have a chance to buy it. I wouldn't have read it in time anyway. But I read chapters, and I quoted you one of the chapters I read.
Shane Horgan, who thankfully agreed to read it, and we got a blurb to put on the front cover.
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
I'll read for you. A hugely enjoyable book that gives a fascinating insight into what's been going on behind the curtain of Irish rugby over the last 20 years. Who was the other contributor?
Paul Howard, yes. And what did Paul Howard say?
He read it in 3 sittings.
Yeah, I know, but I'm a busy man. I mean, look, if I had done
Peter. And a busy one. Anyway, never mind. Thank you.
Now hold on, I'm going to ask you a question. I'll put you on the spot. How much of the book did Justin Fitzpatrick read?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, nothing. None of it. I know. Yeah, because you told me. Right, he didn't read any of it.
I told you.
You sent it to me on a message on LinkedIn. I can show you. You said that they didn't read any of it.
Oh, himself and Mooney. No, I sent them over. I sent them the watermarked version because the book wasn't out yet.
Thank you. And did they read it?
That was 3 years before the book was published.
No, I know, but did they read it?
No, well, they couldn't because the book wasn't published.
But okay, could they read the draft version?
Oh, look, we're disappearing up down a rabbit hole here. Can we dive on, for Christ's sake?
All right, okay. We shall move on.
Can I speak about a memory I have of Willie Anderson? Just when you wrote that book about him, I was at a game at Lansdowne Road, late 70s, early 80s. I think it was about maybe 79. Ireland were playing England, and Nigel Horton was playing in the second row for England, and I was on the sideline. I actually used to stand, the leaning rail they had around the pitch. Yeah. I used to come inside the fence and stand outside that. And I remember Nigel Horton, his head came up over Rock, and Willie Anderson hit him a punch up under the chin, man. The point was flying. It was absolutely amazing. I thought he was the best thing since sliced bread when I seen that happening. He was my hero forever.
He'll be delighted with that, Mike.
Ask him if you
a
ever
lot of
speak to him,
heroes.
ask him, does he remember hitting Nigel Horton?
Well, I would talk to Willie probably every fortnight, so I definitely mention that to him.
There you go.
I think it was 79.
Okay, 79. Jesus Christ, I was 8. Brendan, one thing that was on the list, and I think this is quite pertinent in today's world, is this idea of print media, social media, building up players. Now, I gave you the example, Brendan, of Sam Prendergast. And we've spoken about this on the show before. But Sam Prendergast, let's say last year, was bigged up as being the next Johnny Sexton and all this sort of stuff by folks you know and I know who write, journalists. We won't go into who they are, but they might have tweeted it, they might have put it up on Facebook or Instagram, whatever it was. He's the next Johnny Sexton. But then, Brendan, when there is a faltering in form or a bad game is had, they seem to turn on him. Is there a responsibility, Brendan? You're there, you're involved, you're the author, now maybe not directly, but people of your ilk, that, Jesus lads, would you just stop with the, ease off a bit on the criticism or the praise to build someone up. He's a young lad, and I presume he reads an awful lot of this stuff, and then to be shot down the following year, then to be brought back up the next year, and then another season. Is there any way to not control, but to kind of calm the fucking tits of some journalists who tend to go way offside on these things, Brendan?
No.
That's a great answer. Thanks very much. Okay, brilliant. So
Look, that has always been the way, and I think it is unimaginable that when Andy Farrell made the big decision to ditch Crowley and bring in Prendergast, if you remember, it was this time of year, it was last year, he started off the bench, and then the next week he started, and the week after that he started again, and suddenly Crowley was out of the way, and it was sensational is too strong a word to put, but it was a big story at the time, and Farrell came out front and he spoke very highly of Sam and his presence. And I remember at press conferences at the time, everybody was talking about this kid who we knew about, but we had no idea was going to look so calm and have so much time about him in Test rugby when the going got tough. So everybody, he's an out half, Peter, and in this country we have a fascination. We're not quite the Welsh conveyor belt, but we have a thing about out halves here. We have a thing about the battle for out halves. You know, going back to Wardy and Ollie Campbell, and Rog and David Humphreys, and Rog and Johnny Sexton, and now currently it's Crowley and Prendergast. It's an interesting sideshow for media, and it's an interesting spectacle for punters. Look, common sense, you would hope, would prevail. And if you're writing about a guy who's been just into the team, I suppose it would be no harm if you said to yourself, okay, what if in 2 months' time the arse drops out of his world? Is what I'm writing now going to look pretty odd? I don't know. You know, it's not my job to worry about. I have enough to worry about myself to know than what else I go.
Yeah.
Look,
what about
it's age old, the whole business of evil media build a guy up and then they tear him down. That's what happens.
Yeah, no. I tend to agree very much with what you just said there, Brendan. What about this guy, Brendan, Casper Gabriel? Any thoughts on him? Is he going to go the same route? Oh my God, he's the next.
Well, in order to go the same route, he needs the opportunity. And he's going to struggle to get that opportunity beyond the AIL. So those offers will come few and far between. And that's part of the problem when you're in a small system. If you're Andy Farrell and you have 10 pro teams, if you like England have, then you've loads of shop windows. We don't. We have 4, and maybe one abroad. And if we choose to take exiles back, etc. But it's very hard to get the footage, get the info, get the data together on a guy to make an informed decision on whether he's going to make it as a test player when our system doesn't afford much opportunity. And if we find it hard, think of what it's like in Scotland.
Oh, Jesus. And Wales. But so, Brendan, just quickly before we move on. So, what if you were head of if you were David Humphreys or whatever, the man in power, what would you change to make that different, to give these players more of an opportunity? Or is it just we actually can't because we have 4 teams, we have an academy system, we have the school system, we have the AAL. Is there anything that you could do to change that, or is it just the way it is?
Yeah, I'd be mindful of allowing players to leave and go and play in France, or to go and play in the competition formerly known as the Premiership, now known as the Prem.
Yeah,
for which somebody got paid money to make that brilliant decision.
Yeah.
Like I remember Rog was after. Jesus, who was he after? It'll come to me. He was a guy he was interested in getting over to get him to play in La Rochelle, and if you could get more players out on loan, I think that would be a better idea than having them probably play in AIL or not playing at all.
Yeah, funny.
Not long ago, if you remember, we were talking about creating a 5th province.
Yes.
As in putting a team perhaps in London. And the South Africans are mad keen for a franchise in London. And there was even talk of an Anglo or an exile combo of South Africans and Irish playing in London. And the quality you could get in that would be significant. So Dusifora was certainly looking at that. And then suddenly our results dipped. Nobody's talking about the 5th province anymore. But that'll swing around again with another batch of players.
But I tell you what, the more you talk, Brendan, and I said this at the tangents, the more you talk, he just reminded me of something else. We had Mike Ruddock on here, who was a great guest. And I was asking him about the preference for the Welsh teams to play in the Prem as opposed to the URC. And I asked Mike, so would that be a good thing for the Welsh rugby teams? And he said, the best thing for the Welsh rugby teams and for the URC would be for an Anglo-Irish league and get rid of the URC and just have that. Would you agree with that, or how do you think that would work?
Yeah, I would. And I beat that drum. I'm not claiming I was the first to beat it. I beat it yonks ago. Lots of other people did.
We'll give you that. We'll give you that honor then. We'll give you that honor.
Well, no. It struck me as an obvious solution. 2 conferences, the top 2 in Scotland, the top 2 in Wales, 4 in Ireland, and 10 teams from England. I mean, if Munster were playing Bath 1 week and whoever the next, and we would enhance it. We would bring quality to that table.
Yeah,
the issue was always you had different broadcasters in each jurisdiction, and you had all sorts of deals that were locked and loaded and had X years to run, and it was all too hard. I don't know. God, there's always something new going on in rugby. I would still hope that is not off the table.
Hopefully, I would absolutely totally agree with you, Brendan. Yes, Peter Martin, any thoughts on all the points we just raised before we go on to the games coming up?
Yeah, Brendan just raised a point there about our fascination and obsession with our 10s down through the years. You've already mentioned the great rivalries. I think the Welsh are a little bit like that, but no other nation, to my mind, in my opinion, has the same kind of fixation about certain players. In France, it's all about the scrum half, obviously, Le Petit General, and the number of scrum halves. And I think maybe using the French example, the 10 in France has kind of always been a little bit in the shade of the scrum half, usually, as regards driving a team around the pitch. Is that just the way that is it because the Irish rugby consciousness, for want of a better term, likes to have the 10 as the guy who drives the team around and is basically absolutely centric to the well-being of a team, or is it just basically, or is it something else? Like other nations don't have it. Like just to use the example, like for England, for example, they're like you had Finn Smith and you've Mark, the two Smiths, and they're just kind of there's no real, to my mind anyway, my opinion, there's no real rivalry there between them. You know, Finn Smith plays a kind of a safer, more structured game. Marcus Smith is a bit more of a maverick. He's a jink, and nothing else to his game, to my mind. But they're focusing on, you know, they're talking about Tommy Freeman at centre. There's always been a discussion about how England are not that well stocked at centre. They're talking about this new, I can't think of his name. His name was mentioned to me today. The winger for Saracens, the 18-year-old kid who's going to be the next hot thing. We don't have similar conversations about similar players here, I don't think. But just your thoughts on general. Is it something because we hold the 10 so reverently while other countries don't?
Yeah, I'd say it goes back to Jackie Kyle. We have had and Ollie. Look, Ollie was at the book launch in Tarf with 2 nights, one in Coolmine on a Wednesday, one in Tarf on the Thursday, and Ollie came to the Tarf one, and I was chatting to him about this. And he was delighted to have been a part, even though he's an extremely modest man. I think he was delighted to have been a part of that whole Campbell Ward story.
I remember.
It kept him on his toes. And yeah, we're lucky, I guess, that we have produced down the years. We produced some extraordinary players in that position. Whereas, and you're right, Pete. In France, the goal kickers, I think there are a lot more goal kicking 9s than 10s. And that's it for them. But anyway, look, the current battle between Prendergast and Crowley is defo good for business.
All right, Mike Grady, any final thoughts on this before we go on to the games coming this weekend? I might actually get one more subject in before.
I think Brandon just more or less covered what I was going to say about. There's always been an obsession in Ireland. It's not an obsession. It's just an absolute fact that the 10 has to be the goal kicker. For some, I've never understood the reason for why does the person wearing the 10 shirt have to be the person that kicks a goal? You look at, like you already said, France, it's the scrum half. Like Scotland have had several full backs that Wales have had full. Everybody else has, but we have never ever had any player outside of a 10 that kicks at goal. It's unbelievable. Conor Murray.
We had Conor Murray. Sorry,
yeah, that's Conor Murray is the first one I've seen that's outside of a 10. And we almost panicked, like, you know, because if it would actually take some of the pressure off the 10, off the fly half, you know, if he doesn't have to take kicks at goal. Why I could never understand how Rob Kearney wasn't taking goal kicks like from the halfway line and stuff like that. I couldn't understand. I never could understand the reasoning for it. Person that can kick the ball so far, you know, and why is he not practicing taking penalties and stuff like that?
Who holds the record for the longest? Now, Brendan, I suspect you'll know this. Who holds the record for the longest kick at goal ever? He was a Welsh player.
Welsh player, Paul Tauburn, yeah. I thought it might have been South African.
It was South African. It was.
No, was it not Paul Tauburn?
No, Paul Tauburn kicked a monstrous goal back in the 80s.
80s, yes, it was definitely the 80s.
No,
yes.
there's a big South African centre who playing up until quite recently, who I think may have
Steen.
Franz Steen.
Yeah, Franz Steen.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
he beat the record, did he? I wasn't aware of that.
I think Franz Steen probably has.
He had an enormous boot, and he could play 10, 15, 12. He could play anywhere. Absolutely enormous boot.
But come here. Sorry, Pete, we're fast running out of time. I just want to ask Brendan about this because this is one of the I know we never got through what we put on the list. Anyway, but Brendan, I want to ask you about this because this fascinates me, and people, not always, but sometimes ask me this. The difference between the amateur era and the pro era, Brendan. I remember the amateur era as you do, as Pete, you do, and Mike, you probably do. Great players, Campese, Blanco, you had Nick Farr-Jones, Hughes van der Westhuizen, all these people. And Serge Blanco, Jesus Christ, you wouldn't know what he'd do on the pitch. He'd run from his own try line.
Smoke a fag.
Oh my God, I loved watching him. But Brendan, we don't see, well, maybe we do, but we don't seem to have. Now, the amateur era was mad. It was just, Jesus Christ, look at the scrums, for Christ's sake. The digs, they said the Southern Hemisphere games, they were just killing each other. But there just seemed to be a better, I'm not going to say crack, there just seems to be a better, feeling about watching an amateur game than there does in the pro game. I don't know, Brendan, would you agree? It's just me shooting off. I don't know, Brendan. What do you think about that?
I have good news for you.
Go ahead.
You can do both in the same weekend in this country. You can go and watch an amateur game, and you can go and watch a pro game. And the reason your eye is tearing up, and the reason the violin is coming out, is because it's in the past. I used to think growing up, I grew up in Clontarf, and it wasn't the sunniest part. It wasn't the sunny southeast, and I had this misty memory of long summer days where the sun was shining, which are just figments of my imagination. And the idea that back in the day, amateur rugby was better crack and better to watch. It was filthy.
Yes,
I played.
Yes.
It was, man, it was crazily dangerous. And we did stupid things like run around the pitch doing physical stuff on a Tuesday, and then doing ball work incessantly on a Thursday, and then we get to Saturday and we kick the ball away. Like, it was just mad.
But it was great though, Brendan. It was great.
It gets better the further you're separated from it. I suspect the better it gets.
It probably does. It probably does. You're probably right. It probably is just memories. Peter Martin, any thoughts on this before we go on to the games coming up, because we're overtime?
Yeah, I know I suppose you're talking about the romance of the amateur game, and how the unpredictability, the mavericks that were there, and how compared to the modern game, it's all so structured, and it's not so there's no pattern, I suppose, in the amateur game. If Serge Blanco took off from his own try line, his teammates says, "Oh, here he goes," and they simply followed. While if you did it in the back end of Churchtown, De La Salle, Churchtown, says, "What's that fucking idiot after doing?" And he'd probably lose the ball, and the opposition would score, and you're going, "Fuck's sake, Burke, you're after costing us the game."
That was me. Yes, that was me. Yeah.
This is the when it worked, it was wonderful. When it didn't, it was like, "Oh Christ." And like that was the game that was. Now, and I can say this as a coach, under teaching under 14s. Yeah, and like, I suppose it's broadly kind of in broad strokes, listening to what Andy Farrell tries to do at Ireland and the other coaches. You're trying to give them a broad framework on what to do, but to play within that. So we're trying to get the balance as regards. Go out, have your fun. If it's on, if there's a gap, you go. Have a go, but make sure you have two guys with you. That's the difference, I think, between the ultimate, in very simple terms, between what we're trying to do in the modern game and what happened in the amateur game, is that when you took off with the ball under your armpit, heading towards this try line, you didn't look behind you to say, "Well, Jesus, is the number 8 following me or not?" You just went.
You just went.
And
exactly.
If it was good, it was great, and if it didn't, well.
Yeah.
It was always there, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yes, you're quite right. Mike Reedy, the difference between the amateur game and the pro game. Any thoughts on this before we finish?
Well, Peter, your favourite player anyway is very much from the amateur. He's still from the amateur era, playing in the professional era. Finn Russell. You don't like his contribution to rugby.
No, I don't. I think he's unpredictable, untrainable, and I just think
he's a maverick, but he's a good player, Peter. You're going to have to. One of these days, you're just going to have to admit.
No. Moving on. Go on.
No, there's been changes. Obviously, like that's the ones that go with the territory. You have to have. It's a business now as well as a sport. At the highest level. So However, in Argentina, it's still amateur at every level outside of the national team.
Yes.
But,
okay. Okay, before we go on, sorry, thanks, Mike. Before we go on to the games, and we will finish on that, our colleague, amateur Screw Two-Tone, i.e. Bishop Len. Amateur was more free-flowing game, though. Now it's all metrics and small margins. Yes, very true. Mike Sheedy, hi, Mike. Connor, also Casey, both 9, Kick are number 10. Okay, and Gregor comes in. Of course, Finn gets a mention. Yeah, that's just to annoy me. Okay. All right, folks, we're way over time. Brendan, what we normally do is end the show on predictions for win, lose, or draw. Brendan, seeing as you are our guest, I will leave you as the last voice on the show. So, Peter Martin, to you first. We have the test games are coming up. So we have England at home versus Australia. Pete, who's win, losing, or drawing?
Oh, I fancy Australia.
All right. Okay. South Africa entertaining Japan.
Thoughts and prayers for the Japanese.
All right. We have our own crew. Ireland, we are entertaining New Zealand in Soldier Field. It's going to be a tough one.
I can't but see an all black win, and I'd say it could be 20 points.
Oh, okay. Any reason for that, Pete? Just the recent performances from the Leinster's team, or
there's a number of I suppose. Look, we're only at the start of our season. It's the usual, right? We're at the start of our season. The All Blacks are coming towards the end of our season. Farrell has been out of camp for a period of time. Yes, obviously I'm sure he's bringing fresh messages of some description into the camp to keep things to try and reinvigorate. I just don't see, like as I put it in a comment there on our Facebook group, I just don't see something different that will upset or will surprise the All Blacks. In the short space of time, it'll be just more the same, I think, from us, and I think the All Blacks know what's coming.
All right. Okay, and the final game, Scotland are entertaining the USA.
You'd fancy the Scots.
Surprisingly so. Scotland are favourites. That's not something you hear every day. Okay, Mike Reedy, to you. England entertaining Australia, Mike.
I think it's a case of which England team turn up, really. I'd have to say, I mean, it's Twickenham, so I'd have to say, I'd have to fancy England.
Okay. Would you agree with Peter? It's thoughts and prayers for Japan, South Africa playing Japan.
But I've seen something of Eddie Jones bigging up their chances. They're going to get absolutely fucking slaughtered.
Well, Eddie Jones that's Eddie Jones's MO. He's going to do that anyway. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Mike. Ourselves, Ireland playing New Zealand in Soldier Field. There seems to be a lot of.
I am fearful, by the way, but there's 12 Leinster players on the team. Leinster have not played well at all this season, and that's coming on the back of a Lions tour, which some players now there's massive games needed from at least 2 or 3 guys that have been under par. Gibson Park for one, James Lowe. It's a massive ask, lads. But do you know something? We could go out and give him a game and fucking beat him. I hope we do. I can never back against Ireland ever. So I'm not going to say New Zealand are going to beat us. So I'm going to go for an Irish win.
Okay, patriotic as ever. And the final game, Mike, Scotland are entertaining the USA.
Scotland will beat America, yeah.
All right, okay.
Okay, Brendan. Back home.
All right, okay. Brendan Fanning, to you, the last voice on the show, seeing as you are our guest.
England, South Africa, New Zealand, Scotland.
For fuck's sake, you didn't even give me a chance to ask you. So,
well, I'm nicking ideas from the other lads as you go. England.
Okay, so you're going. Okay, hold on. So you're going England.
Yes.
South Africa.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay,
England, New Zealand, South Africa to beat us.
Yeah. Okay.
And Scotland. To not to paraphrase, to quote Mike, except in reference to the Yanks, not the Japanese. The Yanks are going to get absolutely fucking slaughtered.
Okay, all right. Okay, Brendan, do you want to just show up your book again? This is
Thank you very
Brendan's
much.
latest book, Touching Distance, folks. Available in all good bookstores and online on Amazon. Touching Distance, well worth a read, and I'm really looking forward to reading the book in its entirety, let alone the chapters that I've read already. Okay, my thanks are, as always, to Peter Martin, to Mike Reedy, and to Brendan Fanning. You've been very generous with your time, your thoughts, your comments. And listen, Brendan, the best of luck with your book. And if you're available on the 14th of November, we'll see you in Slattery's. Brendan, a pleasure as always.
My
Thanks,
pleasure,
guys.
Peter. Thanks for the
Thanks,
invite
folks.
on. Cheers. Take care.
Thanks very much,
Take
Brendan.
care, Brendan. Thank you.
Bye,
And
bye.
thank you very much, John.